say what all of us were thinking. And you know, I can't remember how many times Peter opened his big mouth and stuck his foot right in it. And they got rebuked for it. But sometimes that boldness of spirit was rewarded with praise from Jesus. And again, that was Jesus. He was always taking those moments and using them to teach us when it was good and proper and right to be bold, and when it was best to just sit there and keep our mouths shut and listen. But that night, it was the first lesson he taught us that night. It was so amazingly simple, but it was so obviously true. Embarrassing at first, yes, but that really was the lesson itself. That we shouldn't be afraid to be embarrassed, because the minute we do, that's when we start to distance ourselves from the one that can make us right with the Father. Because he was humble. Because he humbled himself. He wasn't afraid to get dirty and half naked in front of us and wash our feet like a common servant. And he used that as a tool and taught us to use it as a tool of his gospel. To get among the people, to be one of them. The lessons that he taught us that night. And that night was special already. The most special of the entire year for our people was the Passover. I mean, we all knew the stories from childhood, from when we were just old enough to listen. Our father Jacob took his family to Egypt to escape a terrible famine, and he came as an honored guest of the Pharaoh, who was given the best land of the entire nation. And then the Pharaohs forgot that friendship. They began to persecute my people and put them under a horrible slavery, cruel, backbreaking labor that almost broke their spirits. But then God sent his prophet, Moses. Moses, with the will of God on his lips, that spoke to Pharaoh and told him to set his people free. And then God proved himself with his signs after terrible signs when the Pharaoh refused to listen. Blood, and bugs, frogs, and disease, and storms, and then darkness. And then the Pharaoh hardened his heart for the final time. And God showed our people. He showed them with a powerful sign of their deliverance. And also a glimmer of the message of the Messiah to come in his final action against Pharaoh. Our people, under the instructions of Moses from God, took the quickest meal that they could get, the quick roasted lamb and the bread without yeast, and they readied themselves. They took the blood from the slaughter of the meal and they put it between themselves and that terrible creeping death that the Lord brought upon the entire nation. All the households, the firstborn sons were killed except for those that were protected by the blood. And that brings me back to this night. Jesus used this powerful night, this symbol of all of those messages of the Messiah that came before. He chose this night to offer himself as our sacrificial lamb. That was the night that he gave himself over to the judgment that was due to all of us. And for the last 3 years, he's been preparing us for that night. He's given us the ability to gather our possessions together and tuck our cloaks in our belts and grab our walking sticks. And then he gave us that last meal where we ate of his sacrificial flesh. And we drank the blood that protects us. The blood that was to come between us and the judgment, the death that awaited us all.
After Jesus had washed their feet, he put his outer garment back on and returned to his place at the table.
Do you understand what I've just done to you? You called me teacher and Lord, and it is right that you should do so. then should wash one another's feet. I have set an example for you, so that you will do just what I have done for you. I am telling you the truth. No slaves are greater than their master, and no messengers are greater than the one who sent them. Now that you know this truth, how happy you will be if you put it into practice.
While we were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying,
"Take and eat. This is my body."
Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying,
Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom.
When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus
I can't even begin to understand everything that happened at that meal, even now. But I do know that there was so much power and love. Earlier, Jesus had spoken in the synagogue about eating his body and drinking his blood. Most of us struggled to understand what he was trying to say, and some of his disciples even abandoned him that night. Now, whether that was because they were disgusted with the imagery or because they really truly understood what he was saying, that he was the only way that we could get right with God and come into his kingdom. I don't know, but even among the 12, we were troubled. But we did trust him. We did trust him, and he told us that night that he was the only way to reach the Father. I'm sorry, I'm overcome. When he passed me that Passover bread, and he handed me that cup of wine, my body registered it as being bread and as being wine. And we saw that he hadn't carved pieces of his flesh and hand out to us. We knew it was bread and it was wine, but yet we were eating his body and we were drinking his blood. It was indescribable. We didn't quite understand what was happening, but there it was. All of that love being given to us. And looking back on it the next day, seeing how much he suffered, looking on from the sidelines in fear